This next episode right here on the Marianne Hickman Show features Chad Brown. I met Chad through a mutual friend of ours, and one of the first things I noticed was this hat he was wearing. It had a big ampersand on it, and when we did our interview, I was like, oh my gosh, you have that tattooed on your ring finger as well. What does this mean? He went in depth into this, and for entrepreneurs out there that have families, maybe you have multiple businesses, maybe you're like Chad and I who have kids, guys, I don't think you should have to give up one to have the other. This ampersand, this and sign that he has tattooed on his hand and he wears every day means say and, not or, to what you're building. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you think of this podcast. Make sure you check out the description for Chad's links, and we'll see you in the show.
Just like this.
Wow.
It was insane. Luckily, we had all of our trees trimmed last fall.
Yeah.
And I think if we hadn't done that, we would have had
You might be a
real
great
issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can make that like this. My entrepreneur mind doesn't stop. Like, my first thought is like, oh, free inventory. I can slice those into 1/2-inch wedges and sell them sliced like. I tell Richard all the time, if left to my own devices, I'm just going to start another business. I need to stop. Like, so I just like to. Are you already recording? How's our audio? Perfect. So I always like to say the podcast starts in the hallway. Just
Yeah.
lead right into it.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked to have you here today. I was honored
for
to be on
having
your
me.
podcast. Thank you for having me.
Incredible.
Yeah. So tell me, and everyone that's watching, what you're all about.
What am I all about?
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah.
mean,
What are you up to nowadays?
primarily what I'm all about is family.
Yeah.
I love my family, and everything that I do is so that I can spend more time with them. So that's ultimately what I'm about. Then I also teach leaders how to create businesses or lead their businesses in a way that they can do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I work mostly with leaders who are finding the struggle or the conflict between how do I run this business? How do I grow it? How do I do it successfully? And how do I be there in a way that I want to be there? And that doesn't just mean time, that means presence and, calmness and, all of the things, all of the trappings that we can fall into as entrepreneurs and founders and business owners is like, so much of it can be in contradiction to how we want to be with our families. And so my mission is to help leaders, help business owners and entrepreneurs create the business of their dream and the family life of their dream.
So how do you find that? Let me go back, because when we chatted on your podcast about this, we talked about this a little bit, but I really wanted to dig in and get your opinion on this whole concept of business and family and how do we do it. I believe that we have seen a dividing of the herd.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever watched How You Met Your Mother.
No,
You
I
watched that
haven't.
show?
Well, I've watched a couple episodes.
Couple
but
episodes.
yeah.
Richard made me watch it religiously.
Yeah.
I think it was an
Yeah.
unspoken condition of our wedding. Like, he's like, I named my dogs Ted and Barney, and you kind of have to watch this show.
It definitely has a cult following.
He
That's for
definitely
sure.
does.
Yeah.
What's up, Marianne Hickman here? Hey, listen, I'm about to give you my phone number, so write this down. 801-509-5495. I want you to text me. What questions do you have about the stage or getting on more stages or getting on podcasts? What questions do you have about monetizing your message and bringing in clients? I want to help you make money with your message. So text me 801-509-5495. Let's chat. So there's this character on this show named Robin. I cannot stand her.
Mhm.
She drives me absolutely crazy because of how selfish and self-absorbed she plays her character.
Mm.
But on the other hand, some people would hang me up for that because they're like, oh, she's just dedicated to her career and that's okay.
Sure.
Which is totally fine. But it is a pop culture reference to you get one or the other. And that's part of the conflict of the character, is that she sacrifices relationships all the time for her career. And the unspoken message is that you can't have both.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen that proliferated throughout my former workplace, throughout my friends. In fact, it is a movement in and of itself to say you can have both.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is your thought on that?
I'm so glad you brought this up. I just recorded a YouTube video on this very subject. It's Alex Hermosi. I kind of dissect a clip of Alex's, and I love Alex. I've learned so much from him on how to organize it, how to organize a business, how to sell, all of that. I love all of that. When he starts talking about how to live life, I'm like, oh, no, brother, I'm sorry. Especially when he'd start talking about how to be a parent and what you can and can't have as a parent. I'm like, well, A, you're not a parent. You don't have
Layla
children.
just found out she's pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, their
I
life
know,
is about to
right?
change.
No, I wonder if his music is gonna change too
Oh
real
my
quick.
gosh. So this is a clip of him walking around a parking lot shirtless, of course, because that's what you
Naturally.
do. Um,
Just wearing a shirt. It's like
if I had a body like that, I'd do all my content shirtless too.
this is my billboard.
But he's walking around the parking lot and he says, look, if you're going to start a business, you got to miss baseball games. You got to miss dance recitals. You have to make a choice. And I think that's a very myopic view of life. And what I say is, or what I talk about in the video is I said, what if I went to Alex and I said, hey, Alex, you can either have a successful business or a body like that, but you can't have both.
Ooh,
Because both
love that.
both take time, both take presence, intention, planning, all of it, right? And so he's just picking and choosing what his and is. And that's actually why I wear this hat.
Ask about that. Yeah.
I always wear this hat because it's a reminder. So I do a lot of one-to-one coaching with clients and then team coaching with clients and over videos doing my work from home. And I wear this hat day in and day out to remind people we can create both. It can be and it doesn't have to be but, or it doesn't have to be or. We can create and. So I believe that it's just about what your intention is. It's about what your aim is. If you are building your business to support your parenthood, your family, or your marriage, that's what you're going to build. But if you're building it to get rich first or to, get prestige, I've been there, by the way, we could talk about that if we want. If you're building it for another purpose with the idea that eventually you'll get back to the family thing, then you're going to build something that takes over your life and you're going to get what you set out to build.
That's like, I think it was you that told me this statistic of marriages that own a business together. What was that again?
It's actually, so it was so surprising to me.
Yeah.
Is that the difference? So divorce rate right now is like 60-ish, 50 to 60% amongst American couples, right? Couples who own and run a business together, divorce rate is 15%.
That's so crazy. Did you remember that when I told you that? I was like,
I know. I looked it up when I was preparing for our conversation.
Yeah.
I looked it up because I just wanted to play with the idea a little bit. I totally assumed that it was going to be way higher.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was going to be like 80%. I don't know why I assumed that.
Because running business is hard.
It is hard.
It's hella hard. Like there's so like this morning we had a run in with our business. We had a staff meeting. Two of us. and we came in and I came in and did what I call pigeon shit management. I got this phrase from my old employer and I was like, that's actually true. When you come in and land on the statue and just poop all over everything and then you leave. Like
that's my parenting style.
Right. My kids' childing style sometimes, but it's this moment where as the artist, as the creator, I came in and I saw something and with the best of intention of trying to help, I was like, I'm confused by that. It should be changed this way. And then I got reported to HR. And then my HR manager called me and happened to be the same guy.
Was that convenient?
Right? He's like, so this happened. And then within probably 10 minutes, I was like, hey, I just did what we talked about me not doing. I am sorry. That's my bad. And then he said, I'm sorry for my part in it too. And we moved on. And that skill of saying, this is what I did. I own it. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's why the divorce rate plummets.
Oh, yeah.
Because we do that in our marriage life too. It's even though it has nothing to do with the business.
Yeah, it's like two realms to practice in, right? So, and the consequences of if you aren't on the same page in the business, the consequences are so much more tangible, right? Like if we don't get on the same page, if we don't run this thing well, it will fail and we do not feed our family.
Exactly. And the people that report to us don't know where and who to follow.
That's right.
We just brought on another 1099 employee this morning and it was crazy because I'm just realizing this right now. I tend to advocate for the kids and I tend to, it's just my mother nurturing side. Like There's
Mhm.
the dad who's really good at disciplining, also very good at nurturing. But I'm also like, well, let's see it from their perspective. And that's just two sides of the same coin and how we parent.
Mhm.
And I find myself doing it with our employees too. And I'm like, I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to see it from this person's perspective. Maybe they would be confused if I was confused. And this, and I just realized that that's what I do with the kids too. And I parent and business the same way insofar as I'm saying the employees and the kids, we all want to be on the same page and we don't want confusion because a confused mind doesn't buy a product or an idea.
Sure.
And that comes from clients or internal. So from your perspective, in building a family, you've got how many kids?
I have 3.
You've got 3 beautiful children. What are their ages?
I've got 18, 14, and
You
11.
have an
I
18-year-old?
do.
Shut up.
Yeah,
Oh
she
my
just
gosh.
graduated college and high school in
No
May.
way.
Yeah,
That's
it's
so
crazy.
cool.
We're in a crazy moment of life.
Okay, I got hung up on the 18-year-old. How old are the other ones?
Yeah, 14
14
and 11.
and 11. Okay, so you've got a good spread. We've
Yeah.
got 18 all the way down to 18 months. And that's we are doing diapers and graduation. It's like diapers and senior photos. It's pretty wild spread. So you've got a world of experience. When would you say you got really good at this?
Really good at what?
At parenting and business, that merging them
Oh
and not
my
making
gosh,
them
I don't
compete.
know if I'm very good at it. I didn't claim that. Uh, Teaching and practicing are two very different things. No, I think it is a lifelong practice. So I think there's actually danger for myself in implying that I've arrived in any way. So I'm committed to the practice, and I think that's the biggest benefit that I get. That's the biggest benefit that I get to reap is the process, not the reward. There isn't a reward in like becoming a good parent, I believe. It's like I mess up today. I got like even this morning, I, I'm in the office and recording a YouTube video, and then I'm getting ready to come here and do this interview. I go inside the house, and of course it's summer, so the kids are just like, it's wild at our house. They're just doing whatever they want.
It's
And
like feral.
our one, right, our one agreement with my 11-year-old son is that the TV or screens don't get turned on until reading has been done. That's like our one summer agreement that isn't negotiable, right? And so I come in and he's got the TV on. What's my first question?
Why is the TV on?
Did you read?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Did you read? And he goes, Dad, you ask me that every day. Why do you ask me? Do you not trust me? Like
Oh
that's the first,
boy.
and that was the first question I asked him, right? I hadn't seen him that morning because he doesn't usually get up before I leave for the off or go into the office. And for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, like where am I? Who am I? What is my aim when that's my very first question to this kid that I love and I'm investing in, and all I care about is that did he read before he turned the screen on? And so to me, that was a moment where it was like, you're still practicing, man, and it's okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
Just continue practicing. Take the feedback. It's what I teach leaders is that the moment we're unwilling to see the feedback and implement the feedback, that's when we start dying. But as long as we're open to the feedback and then we start to implement it and practice something new, we're living, we're building. Right? And so for me, it's like I just want to build the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to die.
So did he read?
Yeah, he did.
He did.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was his complaint. He's like, Dad, I got this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, over the last 2 weeks, I mean, I think I could maybe name one day that he didn't read before he turned the screen on.
How do you develop that level of trust? Here's a rule. I'm going to come back to this question, but I want you to percolate on that. For me, I grew up in a world of trust and verify,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So, and verifying doesn't mean I don't trust you.
of course.
It just means, are we saying yes to the same thing,
Yeah,
right? I think I read and you think I read, but maybe reading for you means 10 pages and reading for me means 10 minutes or whatever it is, right?
oh yeah.
So when I grew up in this world of trust and verify, that can be really hard for a lot of people in my life. There needs to be a support group for people who live with me, I think. And probably for the kids too. But we have found, and I'm opening up a little bit of vulnerability here, we are working through some trust issues with our kids who have learned something from us that makes them feel like they need to deceive. And this happened yesterday. We had Rich and I are married for 3 years. I had my first 5 children with their dad, their bio
Yeah.
dad. And last night was parent time with bio dad.
Yeah. And how many do you two have?
We have one together,
Okay,
but he's
great.
he's dad to
Yeah.
all 6,
Yeah.
right? So our son comes home at 9 o'clock, and he is from a sleepover next door during his bio dad's parent time, right?
Mhm.
So he comes home, and he's like, you can tell he's like trying really hard to keep a good attitude. He's doing great at it, but generally his attitude deteriorates when he didn't sleep the night before. And this happens often when he's at his friend's house because they game all night,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
And when it's other dad's parent time, we don't have any say. Anyway, so what this culminates in is our son wanting to deceive us into thinking he slept,
Of course.
right?
Yeah, you got to
Because
preserve that experience with gaming all night, man.
exactly. He wants what he wants, but there's a lack of trust, which means we have taught him not to trust us in some way or another because he doesn't want to be honest. And it went the whole day with the dishonesty until it finally broke down at night. And he's like, I did stay up all night. I didn't do my jobs today. I got on streams without doing my jobs. And this is an ongoing issue. So like, from your perspective, how am I messing up? What am I doing wrong here? Like, why does my son not want to tell me the truth? And he's 11. How do we need to, like, well, let's fix this?
Well, I mean, I don't know the answer. One of the things that I would say is part of this is just human experience, right? Especially 11 years old, you're experimenting. How am I my own person? And how am I still connected to these people who can who can dictate who I am and what I do and, all of that sort of stuff. And that's like a really weird place to be in. And
It
you're
is.
testing boundaries to see, oh, can I go here or can I go here or where's too far? Oh, that works or, all of that sort of stuff. So on the surface or maybe even deeper than surface, I would just say human experience. Like most kids are going to explore that. My oldest, who's now 18, didn't ever explore that. And now she's ready to move up to the U, and she's experiencing a lot of anxiety, and I attribute part of that to she really didn't explore her own boundaries, her own self, and what she can get away with, what she can't get away with, like all of that sort of stuff, and even to the point where we had one incident maybe a year ago. That she got caught doing something that was against what we would want her to do. And that was like absolutely devastating to her. Like it tore her up. And I'm going, no, like do that. Like secretly, I didn't tell her this, right? But
no, mess up.
but
Break
like,
the rules.
I'm like, finally you're getting some experience because without this experience out there's going to feel like a crazy place. And you don't know what your boundaries are. You don't know how to interact with it. So that would be my first reaction is that you talk about trust and verified. And this is an interesting thing because this is something I work with a lot of leaders on. Trust is everything in an organization if you want to get something done, right? If you want to go after and accomplish a big, audacious goal, trust is the engine that's going to get you there. The problem is that most leaders, and this would be leaders of families as well, misunderstand trust. We think there's one type of trust. And there's actually 3 types of trust.
Ooh, this is cool.
So the first type of trust is infantile trust. That's the trust of an infant. They have no choice but to trust you and their life depends on it, right? You're going to shelter them. You're going to love them. You're going to feed them, all of that sort of stuff. If they don't, they either die or they malnutrition, all of the bad things, right?
Yeah.
Not talking about that. There's something called immature trust. Immature trust is, I trust you so I don't have to pay attention to you or what you're up to or the results that you're creating.
Give me an example of that one.
So an example of this, and this is funny, this is a funny thing about our culture, especially the Western culture, is that we tout this type of trust like it's noble. Like, we're good because I trust you so much that I don't ever have to check in on what you're up to. What that would look like is in a business context is, let's say I own a business, I have a general manager. I trust them so much that I just go about doing my thing, ideating, visionary, vacationing, all of that sort of stuff. and never check in on what's going on for them. Are the results being created? Like all of that sort of, as long as there's money coming into the bank account, they're doing their job and I don't have to pay attention to them. And how that usually shows up internally is like, oh, they've got it. I trust them. I don't want them to feel like I don't trust them. I don't want to micromanage. That's the one that I hear over and over and over again. I don't want to micromanage. And so, but what happens is, and Jordan Peterson talks about this,
I'm
which
looking at Richard because we have used this script in the last 72 hours
I
within
love
our
it.
business. I'm like, you
There's this clip that I have saved on my phone and I listen to it over and over and over again from Dr. Jordan Peterson.
love him.
And he says, we all have snakes in us. And trust is the ability to realize that we could betray each other at any moment. And that trust is, we trust we will recover when we do betray. So trust isn't believing that that somebody's not going to betray you, even your partner, even, somebody. Mature trust is knowing that I will be betrayed, but we can recover. So
That feels more relieving than this middle. What was the middle one?
immature trust.
Immature trust.
That's
when
right.
you were describing that, I was getting anxiety.
Oh yeah.
Like my heart twisted and knots.
Well,
like,
it makes sense because you have this philosophy of trust, verify, which trust and verify is a result of mature trust. Because it's like, I want to do business with you, or I want to do a project with you, and I totally trust you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing the project with you. However, I'm going to pay attention to the places that we could misstep together.
Right.
Places that you might betray me, but I would accept the betrayal out of some sort of trust, right? And ultimately, I'm going to miss things early on, and they're going to become much bigger problems than they were if I would have just caught it and just said, hey, Marianne, when you said this or you did this, that didn't really line up with our aim. I'm curious about that for you, and then what we can do to kind of get it, to not kind of, sorry, let me clean up my language, get it back on track towards what we said we're about. So it is relieving. And it's also when you have a culture of people working together that believe this same thing, and everybody's paying attention to each other, not in a micromanaging, not in a judgmental way, but we're for each other.
Yeah.
Because I have snakes in me. I have the potential to betray you, maybe even without noticing it.
Yeah, we call that dropping the ball.
Yeah.
It's not a deliberate
That's right.
stabbing to the back betrayal. It's like, I said I would do this and I forgot.
Yes.
Now what?
Yeah.
And I love that level of trust that you're talking about, because it's what we as parents want to teach our kids as far as problem solving. We don't hide our heated discussions necessarily from the kids, because we also don't hide the healing part of it from the kids.
Right on.
And we also, in our business, and in our marriages specifically, and I say marriages because we both came from marriages where the worst kind of betrayal happened.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're in this marriage, and we do have, I believe in, the perfect word would be implicit trust with each other. And we have open discussions about business and about family and about all these things. And this feeling of, I don't want to micromanage, but for me, I really value understanding you, and I really value being understood, so that when we believe we're on the same page, we are.
Yeah.
And that for me is the antithesis of the most dangerous thing is, I thought I knew and I was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so interesting, especially in the context of marriage, as I've come to, as both Katie, my wife, and I have come to realize and understand these principles of trust a little bit more. An ongoing conversation for us is being unfaithful. How do we relate to it? And we can talk about it, and we can talk about it like it's a human experience. We talk about who we were attracted to, all of that sort of stuff. And the thing about what's crazy about that is that a lot of couples that I talk to, particularly in my leadership coaching, oftentimes conversations come off the business and into marriage and life and what has worked and what hasn't worked. And we end up working with a lot of people who have experienced betrayal in their marriage, or maybe they're currently experiencing betrayal. So, all of that kind of stuff. And one thing that's pretty common amongst all of those clients is that they don't have a relationship with their spouse or their partner where they talk about the potential of betrayal,
Mm.
because it's always there. I promise you, it is always there. I'm not saying everybody's out there looking to
Yeah, I
cheat.
don't think there's always a back burner
No,
backup person, right?
no. What I'm saying is that you're human. You're fallible. I believe your commitment, and I also believe people are weak in moments or circumstance, or you can convince yourself of really odd things in certain circumstances. So anyway, it's just the trust between us. We talk about this often, my wife and I. The trust between us went way up and way up, way up when we decided we could talk about all of this
Mm-hmm.
together. And I don't know, it's been really fruitful for us.
What would you say? And it sounds, I didn't expect this to go this way, honestly. But this is really cool because I'm seeing a lot of dovetailing in your leadership training and your family
Oh
training,
yeah.
and how the and might be precipitated
Oh yeah.
partially in due to the fact that leadership in your family and leadership in the business are pretty much the same thing.
Absolutely.
If there were a core set of principles that you say these apply to both business and family, what would you say that they are?
Everything. I don't compartmentalize life. I don't think there's business and family. And I think when there is business and family, like mentally, when people try to do that, it creates a tension that is ultimately results in betraying one or the other.
Mm. There's a bumper sticker for you. Holy cow.
Right? It's my whole work, and I tell people this from the beginning, because if they're not into this, then I don't want to work with them, and that's fine too. But my whole thing is integration. My business needs to be integrated with my family. My family needs to be integrated with my business, so that my business is rooting for my family to win, and my family is rooting for my
Mhm.
business to win, because they know they're integral to each other. One doesn't exist the way that we want it to exist without the other. So every principle, every leadership principle that I talk with leaders about is applicable to leading their team and leading their family. So, I mean, and it's, as we start to open that conversation up with clients, it's like really beautiful to see them like, it's like a weight is lifted, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to be this person over here and then this person over here. I can be the same in both places and practice the same principles in both places. So specific principles, I mean, I think everything applies.
I have really admired, especially when I was on your podcast, your manner of communication. You're very intentional with your language. You
Very.
handpick and cherry pick words that I know that you've practiced,
Mm,
right? And you've also eschewed words from your language that you know don't serve
mm,
because they weaken what you want to say.
yeah,
Where did that come from?
that's the core of my training. So luckily, I've worked with a mentor and a partner for the last 12 years that is classically trained in linguistics. And the philosophy that we work on is that future state is born in present language. So I'm literally creating my future by the language that I use. And so, and then also when I'm working with somebody one-to-one coaching, the only window I have into their thinking is the language they use. We're pretty deceptive human beings, meaning most of us are wearing masks in certain ways, but we don't know how to mask our language. So
Interesting.
so when you really pay attention, when you really listen to somebody and the language that they use, you can start to get an idea of the future they're creating in their mind. And that's when you can really start to dig into those stories and ask, is the language you're using going to create the future you say you want? Or is it going to create a different future that you're going to be surprised by and that you didn't want?
Do you find that you detect a lot of white space in the verbal delivery of language where you can sense the dissonance? Your words are saying one thing, but your tone and your body language or other indicators.
100%.
How
Yeah.
how does that manifest, and how do you address that when you're making fun
Always.
of clients? Like, what do you do?
Always. I just say, there's an inconsistency. Here's what I don't understand. You're saying this, but you're doing this. Or you're saying this, but you're also talking about how you're static or stuck, right? I always listen for phrases like I'm always, I never, absolute statements like those. Those are indicators of places that we're stuck. And if you're using that language, but also trying to create a new future, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because you see yourself as a static, fixed person. And that language you're going to believe it. That's the problem, is you believe the language you use, unless you're a sociopath.
Nah. I've had a couple of those too.
But most human beings, they create their future by the language that they use because they believe themselves. And so my work is to interrupt the language that you're using. That's where we start. Like even, I forget the dreams, forget the vision boards, like all of that sort of stuff. Don't forget them. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do that. And let's pay attention to how you're talking right now. And that's really tangible. And we can get even earlier in this conversation, I softened something by saying maybe.
And kinda.
Or
I noticed that.
maybe it was kinda.
Yeah.
And I caught myself. It's like, no, I didn't kinda do that. Why am I softening that?
Yeah.
There's something in that. There's an insecurity in that for me that caused me to soften it rather than just say it. And so I'm investigating for myself. Why did I soften that? What's the insecurity? What am I worried about? What's the fear that I'm experiencing that's not going to produce the future that I say I want? So first is recognizing it, catching it, and then next is creating new language. And the new language is a practice lifetime. Yeah.
I detected that when you did it, and like you just self-edited. And in my head, I went through every email, every text message, every conversation I could think of where I was like, did I do that too? I softened what I really meant.
Yeah.
Why did I do that?
Yeah.
Is there a place where that can serve? Does it build bridge, or is it always an indicator of eroding confidence? Using
Yeah.
this example specifically.
Yeah. I don't use absolutes, so I don't know about always.
Yeah.
I do know when I use them, it's because I'm insecure about what I'm saying. I'm insecure about maybe my ability to create the experience that I'm explaining, or maybe it's that I am saying that I do something, but I can also replay all the moments in my life that I didn't do that thing. Ultimately, what I want to do is if I'm using words like kinda, if I'm softening it, what I'm doing is I'm tempering your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I temper your expectations, soften it just a little bit, then I'm not on the hook. I'm not accountable to the thing that I'm saying, telling you that I'm, about.
Right.
Or whatever. So that when I betray you,
There's a loophole.
there's a loophole.
Yeah.
Right?
You left room for that.
Yeah. Subconsciously.
Interesting. Oh, that's fascinating to me. I'm curious about this question. How would you define leader?
How do I define leader?
Right.
My definition of a leader is somebody who is committed to creating results through other people.
How does that manifest?
So I say I'm committed to a result. Let's say, we can keep it real simple.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to create this much revenue in my business this year. Can't do it alone. Need to bring people on board, which then I need to create and sell a vision that they believe in enough to do the work that it's going to need to be done in order to create that result. So if at the end of the year I create the result, and obviously it's a lot more complex than this. Revenue is a really low level bar for leadership.
It's a very common measure.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So I just don't want people to think like, I know that there's so much more color and there's so much more important things that a leader does, but it's pretty elementary to talk about revenue.
Yeah, everybody wants that.
Yeah. At the end of the year, if I created it, if we created the revenue that we set out to do and we did it together, then that's a leader. That's somebody who has led a group of people to get a result. Mm-hmm. If I didn't, there's something missing in my leadership. Doesn't mean I'm not a leader, but there's something wanting for my leadership because we didn't create the result. And all of my work is based on, did we create the result or did we not? Mm-hmm. That's the feedback. That's the universe saying you did it or you didn't do it. Mm-hmm. You had everything that's needed or something's missing. And so that's how it manifests to me. It's like in my family, right? my aim, the result is that my kids get my love. And if they don't get my love, then I'm not leading well. There's something missing in my leadership. How do I know if they get my love? Well, the only way that I could know that is if I ask them.
I was wondering what your measuring stick of that intangible deliverable is.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And that's when it gets a lot more gray. That's when it gets a lot more experiential. And you actually have to seek the feedback because it's not a number on a balance sheet. And so I ask my kids regularly, hey, how am I doing as a dad? Do you get my love? I mean, what's missing? What's, all of that sort of stuff. So I'm committed to measuring the result. And if the result that I'm committed to creating isn't there, then I know something's missing in my leadership.
When has that happened?
All the time.
What do you do? Like, because I do these like personal interviews with my kids every now and then, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's a sit down, let's talk, and sometimes like on the down low, I'm just gonna slide it in while I drive in the car. But it's this question like how am I doing as a mom when I'm being very blatant about it? But sometimes I ask the question, what would you have done if you were me?
It's a good question.
Like, what do you find is
Great question.
are you open to sharing the toughest piece of feedback that you got?
Oh yeah. Just the other day, I mean, our middle daughter is incredible. And her and I are like oil and vinegar. I mean, or not oil and vinegar, those go
I'm
together.
like, that's delicious.
Oil and water,
Uh.
right? I love her dearly and she's amazing. And we just find ways to be in conflict all the time. Not all the time, a lot.
Yeah.
We have great moments too, really beautiful connected moments as well. But out of all of my kids, her and I and I think she's alpha, and so she's really like strong. And so
I got one of those.
we struggle, we struggle with that. And I'm not like as smart and as amazing to her as all of my other kids think I am. And so I also struggle with that. But just the other day, she said, she gave me the feedback very, very clear. She said, Dad, you are allowing your temper to control our conversations a lot lately.
Did she say that?
Pretty much.
Like,
I mean,
that's very astute.
well, we have these conversations a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is dinner. This is like
It's your
dinner
talk.
conversation at our house. We're talking about EQ and, all of that sort of stuff. And so I don't think that's the exact word she used, but it was like your anger, is really showing up a lot in our conversations. Like she said, you go to anger so fast. And at first I was really pissed off. And it was, it was something. I think as a dad, I can handle a lot, like finding out that my kids broke a rule or did something without me knowing, or whatever. I'm cool with that kind of stuff. Like that stuff I can really navigate well. Where I get tripped up is when I feel there's a disrespect. That's what really gets me.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because that's a perceived experience anyway. It's not necessarily a disrespect. It's what I have made up about what they're doing means disrespect. And so she has been talking about, like, she's been talking to us like we're stupid. Imagine that, a 14-year-old girl, right? Weird, super weird. And like, we're the biggest idiots in the world, right? And how would we know that? Why would we ask that? And blah, 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 blah. And to me, this is just really triggering. I hate that word, but like,
I know it's been
like, yeah, it's one thing that like really gets me hot.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot lately, and I've been reacting in anger. And she gave me that feedback, and at first I was really, really angry about it, and I didn't want to hear it.
The irony.
I know, it's so funny. And we had a conversation about it for about an hour and a half, and Katie was in and out of the conversation, kind of helping me get back into. And ultimately, I just said, look, I finally came to it. I was like, you're right. You're 100% right. I
Mhm.
can see how I've been reacting out of anger. And I can see everything that I'm making up about your interaction with me. I make it about me and not you and not what we're trying to build together. And so ask for her forgiveness, and hopefully we can move on and put into place some ways that she can communicate to me and I can communicate to her when she's experiencing me as angry, and that scares her, and all that sort of stuff. So that's been the hardest piece of feedback that I've gotten recently. That was
Mhm.
just like a couple weeks ago. And I can make up all of these things about like my profession and what I do and all that sort of stuff. And man, I should be so much better than this by
Oh, the
now. And
should. Oh,
yeah, should is shame. And but yeah, it was tough, but ultimately very, very so grateful for the feedback. Um and grateful that we're now practicing something new together.
that's so commendable, and I love how one of the first things you said was when you work with clients, this family dynamic is what
Mhm.
comes at first because I'm listening to what you say. I'm like, how do I do that? Do I show up in anger, or do I listen, or do I do it with the people that report to me professionally? Do I do it with the people that report to me that, I give birth to, and all of these things? I want to dive
Yeah.
so much deeper into that. But I will just ask this. After people go through your training and after their leadership experience with you, I don't know how long the duration is, whether it's a 6-week program or whatever
Yeah,
time you spend with
I
them.
got a couple of different things. So I have a 100-day program.
Hmm.
It really helps people get clear on their principles, their core values, their vision, and then how to scale that to their team so that their team can scale their business for them and they can create some business or some freedom in their business. That's one way. Another way is people work one-on-one with me typically for a year.
A year.
Yeah.
Okay. My question is this: after they graduate, whatever program they're
Yeah.
in, what do they generally say that surprised them? Because generally people will go to a coach saying, I'm coming to you because I need this.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the testimonial was like, oh, it was so much different and better
Yeah.
than I expected. What do people say?
Yeah. People listening to this aren't going to like it.
That's, I
Um,
gained 100 pounds.
The most common thing that I get after people work with me is that they didn't realize it was their beliefs that were holding them back.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
I find the same thing, and yet I find it so difficult to market to the
People don't
belief
want to hear it.
because it's not what people are looking for.
No, nobody will think about the threat that is,
Mhm.
right? It's a threat for somebody to say, I'm going to change your beliefs. That feels
Instantly,
threatening. That's a wall. I don't
yeah.
want that, blah, 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 whatever. So people are looking for systems, tips and tricks, all of that sort of stuff. And those are the things that hook them. Results, increase in revenue, money, right?
Right.
Money, like all of the money. What's the three big ones? Money, relationships, and status,
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that. So if you use those in your marketing, that's your hook. And then ultimately, it's the change in belief. It's the recognition of blind spots and stories that they've been making up about the way things have to be, right? It's like that belief that I either have a successful business or I'm a dad that is connected and present and, all of that. It's either or. I've got to choose one or the other. And that's a belief, and it's a
Mhm.
deep-seated belief. And people think, "Oh, I just need somebody to show me how to make to create really good systems in my business, and then I'll have the freedom to be the dad that I want to be." It's not that's bullshit. Ultimately, the belief is I can do, and so that's a blind spot. And showing people always say like, I didn't realize how blind I was or how much I had made up things have to be the way that they are. And once I was shown that I could question all of that and that maybe there's something I hadn't considered, that was the most valuable part of it.
What a beautiful standard to wave,
Yeah.
a flag to plant in people's minds. So you've been running your business for a while.
Mhm.
You've obviously got a beautiful family that is in a like the growth word that you use is so gorgeous because the growth means thriving,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if my garden grows, it means it's thriving, it's doing well.
Sure.
Um, why did you start your podcast? What made you want to get into podcasting from your business?
I've been podcasting for a long time.
Yeah.
I've had 5 different shows that I've grown
No
over the
kidding.
years. So I just love the medium. I
Yeah.
think it's an incredible medium. I listen to podcast. I'm a consumer of the medium, so I listen to podcasts everywhere I go. I work out, drive, travel, whatever. I'm listening to podcasts. I think it's really cool because we can do this. It's not these short little snippets. It's not these headlines or these, whatever. We can really get into it and we can have a meaningful conversation. We can ask each other questions. Um, and ultimately I just wanted to have meaningful conversations with people, find out what makes them tick. That's what drives everything that I do in my work is like, who are you? What's going on up there? And are like, how clear are you on what's going on up there? And can we help add some clarity to that? So, I don't know. I just love it. I love the medium.
When I teach public speaking, I encourage people to be on podcasts
Mm,
all the time.
yeah.
This is a beautiful platform. You don't even have to have your slide presentation. It's easy to get on the right podcast, and it can do so much for your business. Like,
Yeah.
what would you recommend to anyone that's like, I want to grow my business, or would you recommend podcasting?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
even if they don't start their own, would you recommend being on one?
I
How do you do it?
I would actually recommend being a guest before starting your own. I would say guest on like 200 podcasts before you decide you're going to start your own. Look, there's a million podcasts being started every single day.
Mhm.
So it's getting more crowded and more challenging. You can actually make a greater impact going and borrowing other people's audiences. So, and it's incredible practice to one of the most crucial skills I think there is to own a business, a successful business, as being a storyteller.
Ooh, those stories, whether or not they serve us, those stories we tell ourselves sell us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not even just the stories we tell ourselves, the story we tell people,
Yeah.
right? The story I tell you, the story I tell your audience. And so this is something for me that I'm consistently working on. And I think I have so far to go in my storytelling. And I could be such a more potent and powerful. When I say power, I don't mean power over people. I mean potency, like
Influence.
influence and effect and all that sort of stuff. There's so much available in storytelling, and I think the ones who tell the story the best win.
That's true for better or worse.
Sure, of course, but
I-
that's with everything.
It is.
Everything's a tool.
I don't know why it comes to mind this way, but I remember I was 12 years old. I'm about to tell a story. Like, I go back into stories all the time. I'm in France, driving around the roundabout of the Arc de Triomphe, and it's crazy. And I'm watching these edifices all around me and these monuments to war victories and curious about what it is and the architecture and so forth. And I'm actually reading Napoleon's history, and I look at this magnificent structure and I look at Napoleon's history and I was like, those don't match.
Mm.
This structure is a story that he's telling.
Oh yeah,
This is the story of the victories. This is and it's lasted hundreds of years, this monument to this. And that is the prime example of storytelling is what do I want the people to believe?
Mhm.
And why do I want them to believe that? Because as you know, storytelling can be used selfishly for the speaker,
Yes.
or it can be used selflessly in order to nurture the audience. How do you tell the difference?
So this is something interesting. How do you tell the difference between if they're trying to nurture their own interest or they're trying to nurture the interest of the audience? Is that your
Yeah,
question?
because it comes down to leadership. I can be a selfish leader and
Right.
have a flash in the pan of success, but it dissolves eventually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I can be a selfless leader. Maybe people will never know my name, but I've changed hundreds of lives,
Right
thousands
on.
of lives, right?
Right on. I think to me, it's like, so this is what's interesting, also interesting, and what I love about my work is I teach people to decipher story, both to tell better stories and to know what stories to believe. I think both are really important. One is, so I started a media production company in 2009. That's kind of like my beginning of entrepreneurship. Well, I had 3 or 4 failed businesses
That's what
before
I
that
say,
one.
serial entrepreneurs.
But that was my first successful experience in starting a business, and ran that for I don't know, about 11 years, and then sold it. So that was all about storytelling. What is the story that we're telling? What's the story structure? What do we want people to feel at the end of this story, which is, by the way, the whole purpose of storytelling. It's about what they feel, not what you tell them. And they'll believe off of their feeling more than they'll believe anything that you tell them. And so that was like a real significant part of my career, was teaching people, or myself, learning to tell stories to create an outcome.
Mhm.
Now my career is about helping people decipher stories, which is, there's two things we pay attention to. What do they emphasize and what do they omit? When you're listening to anybody tell you a story, what I would encourage you to do is identify, what are they emphasizing? What are they omitting? With those two pieces of information, you can then investigate, what is it like. You can start to get a picture of what their motivation is based off of what they're telling you and what they're not telling you. What are the parts of their story? What are the parts of their pitch that they're really emphasizing, that they say multiple times, or that they use as punctuation, or that sort of stuff? And then ask yourself, what would be the motivation of emphasizing that thing?
Mhm.
And then omission. What did they leave out? What's a hole in the story? What got skipped over? What doesn't make a lot of sense? And what would be the motivation for omitting that? Right? It was like, I was coaching a client the other day, and he hired a contractor to come in and do some work for him. It's a creative industry. And he hired this contractor based off of a portfolio. And he paid a lot of money for this contractor to come in and do this work based off the portfolio that he saw, yada, yada, yada. Well, what do you know? Didn't vet it, didn't give enough information, didn't lead the relationship well. And the result on the creative project is not what he wants,
Mm.
right? And when he's telling me the story, he keeps emphasizing my money. It's a very simple, like very small thing, but he kept saying, I can't believe I paid $2,000 of my money to hire this contractor.
Oh.
I can't believe he doesn't understand that this is my money. Or I can't remember the exact quotes, but he said my money like 3 or 4 times. Like, oh, that is really interesting. You're emphasizing that this is your money. Like, what's up with that? And then we did a whole investigation, come to find out he's feeling a lot of pressure financially.
Yeah, that's the story sells for sure.
Yeah. And so he's emphasizing it, and I know that he emphasized this with the contractor when they were trying to negotiate both what they were going to do, and he was trying to get him to discount his rate after the work wasn't what he wanted it to be. And I know he had emphasized my money. And really that tells me so much about the story, the position that he's in, what his interests are, all of that sort of stuff. It tells me, and this is the feedback I gave him, I don't know that you're real interested in this relationship and like finding the best thing for both of you. What you're telling me by your language is that you're trying to get something out of him.
Yeah.
You're trying to get him to discount the rates, or reckon, or even feel shame about the work that he delivered because this is your money. So anyway, it's a weird example, but it was so clear to me, like there's something off here because you keep emphasizing that thing, and then we can investigate it. Luckily, he was open enough and was receptive to the feedback. I had built that trust, and he looks to me for that kind of feedback. That's my job. And so he was open to it, and then went and reconciled, and noticed, where he does this in other places, particularly in his
Interesting.
marriage. But
Ooh.
so I mean, it was listening for emphasis and omission is really powerful.
Gosh, I took so much away from that sentence, that whole story, because the emphasis on omission and asking, why do they say this? And why aren't they telling the dark side?
Hmm.
And so forth. What do they want me to get or believe or feel because of this? And am I okay with that? I think it was Jeff Griffin I was talking to. It might have been Salt. I wish I could credit the right person because this is so profound for me. This feeling of when we are going after a goal or an objective and we glorify the objective and we give it the if onlys, If only I did this, I'd be happy. If I had $1 million pop in my lap, or if I had this, I'd be so happy. And pretty sure it was salt, if I remember correctly. He said the reason that you're not getting this big thing that you want is because you're fawning over it. You're creating a fangirl club out of it, and people are repulsed by that, and
Yep.
so are gold. And he said, if you want to collapse the distance between yourself and what you want, you really got to look at both sides. If I get $1 million dropped in my lap, that means I also have to pay $500,000 in taxes too.
Yeah.
And am I okay with that? Do I want both sides
Yeah.
of this coin? And if you say yes to the light and the dark, it collapses what you want into your lap
Mhm.
a lot faster. So that's one of the things I took away. But I also wanted to ask about this transactional relationship. That's the words I use for it, right?
Yeah.
The transactional relationship of we did business together. Well, I'm here to get something out of you. You're here to get something out of me. Is there a space for purely transactional relationships? And I go into this with this example. There are times when I want a transactional relationship.
Sure.
I want to go into the barber. I want them to cut my hair. I want it to look good. I want to pay them, and I want to leave. I don't need a psychologist chair. I don't want to, develop this. I just want to go in, get it done, and get out, and both be happy. I'll pay you. You do my hair, or whatever it is, a massager,
Yeah.
or whatever service. And is there space for transactional relationships, or is there a way to have healthy versions of that? What is your perspective on it?
Sure. Yeah. It's all about the agreement that you make. Like clear agreements.
Yeah.
As long as it's consensual.
It
Sounds, I mean, it sounds so weird to say it that way, but yes, like as long as it's clear that if you're not deceiving in a way that I think it's more than just this transaction, right? This is the problem I have with networking events or networking groups, and the people that are there saying, "Oh, I'm really into relationships, and I just really want to build relationships and help you," and all the whole time they're gaming about what they get out of it,
Oh, the
right?
selfishness. Yeah, I've seen that so proliferated.
And that's why people are so turned off by networking or networking events, is because there is this two-sidedness to it. There's this inauthenticity that's like, yes, I care about you, I want to help you, all that sort of stuff, all while the whole motivation behind it is I need to get what I want.
Yeah, I get it.
Can we just be honest about, I don't know, we have a mutual friend in Sean Finnegan, and this is
Yeah.
one of the things I really love about him, and I'm continuing to learn from him, is that he's very transparent about his transactions. He's like, I'm with you because I want to transact with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, be excited about that.
yeah, right on,
Like we don't have a lack in our relationship because we didn't go to Topgolf this week,
right on.
right? I'd want to. I think that'd be fun. But it's that sounds awesome to me. Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
energy of it.
The other thing that it does for me is that I know he's sincere in it. And he wears it on his sleeve. And so
feel it.
now what's happening is when I'm out in the world, I'm looking for transactions for Sean
Hey, too.
because I care for him. I like him as a human being. He's made some deposits and investments in me. I want to do the same thing for him. And knowing that's what our relationship is built on, is how can we help each other get the transactions that are going to build our businesses, invest in our families, like all of that sort of stuff. I think that that's just as solid of a foundation as this idea of like, well, I'm just, it's so altruistic. I'm just trying to help you out. I don't want anything out of it, man. Like, I don't know. It's just,
It smells funny.
yeah. And
So-
I always say, like, be clear on your agreements. Be clear with people what you want, who you are. And if you're willing to do that, you will attract the people who want that same sort of thing and who are cool with that kind of honesty. If you don't, if you wear this mask, if you pretend, then you're going to attract people who are also pretending. You're also going to attract people that value things that you don't value. And then you're going to wonder why you're surrounded by people that bug the shit out of you and that aren't for you or aren't working towards something similar. Right. And that's a conversation that I hear all the time, especially on the internet. It's like, I've got all these toxic people in my life. And I'm like, well, maybe you should look at yourself.
You might be the common denominator.
Where are you toxic?
That's
because
not a conversation people want to hear.
No, course
It's
it's
not.
not.
Who wants that?
Of course. And look, I'm not immune to this. I do this for myself. It's like when I find myself surrounded by people or in a friendship that isn't working for me, I need to turn it back on myself and say, okay, where have you compromised? Where have you been willing to be fake? Where have you, or whatever my complaint is about that person, it's like, no, I know that I've attracted this. I know that I've been okay. I've allowed this in
Mhm.
my life. Therefore, I know I'm participating in it in some way. So it's me. Let me look at me. And once I get clear on that, it's very clear what needs to happen with the relationship.
I love that level of clarity. I just spoke with Hope Zavara, who is I met her as an MC at an event I went to actually, but she runs a company called Mother Trucker Yoga. But I know it's really awesome. She's
Mm.
like she teaches truckers yoga. I didn't know there was a niche for that, but she like made a great company building it. But has
Wait,
a
trucker yoga
yeah,
for like
big
truckers,
rig
for like guys
18
that
wheeler.
drive.
That's the
Wow,
one.
wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
say guys and gals.
You hit the demographic. It's pretty much that. But she has a segment on creating clarity
Mm.
and clarity within myself. And when I got put on the spot, I thought I was clear. When I got put on the spot and she made me complete a sentence and I stumbled and fumbled through it, I was blown away. And
Yeah,
I thought, no wonder my audience can't hear me. I don't even understand myself
yeah,
because I'm not clear.
yeah,
And that clarity and self radical honesty
yeah.
is such an admirable trait. So let me ask you this: how do people get a hold of you? How do they play in your world? If people want to get in your sandbox and build some castles, how do they get a hold of you?
Our YouTube channel is Founders League. Our podcast is Founders League. You can check us out there.
I have
You're on
watched it, listened to it. I highly recommend it, you guys. There's some incredible guests that you have on. Not
Uh,
just me. I'm talking about some other people too. That couple that you had on.
yeah,
Oh gosh, I can't remember their
yeah.
names now.
John and Lindsay Ivy.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. They
yeah.
were so cool to listen to. I
They're
literally found them on
amazing.
Instagram. I was like, we have to be friends.
Yeah, they're so incredible. I'm on Instagram, chad.leslie.brown. I'm on all the spaces, LinkedIn, and I think we're connected on multiple spaces. So if they're connected to you, they can, by association, find me.
Well, we'll get your links too and throw them in the description too. So
Yeah.
any final words for our audience today?
Final words.
In fact, I'm going to phrase it because you phrase it for me so beautifully. I'm going to
Yeah.
steal this from you.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
If you had a message that would be interpreted as your last message to the world, if nothing else, what would it be?
Be open. Be open to possibilities, even the possibilities that you haven't considered. And the places where you're convinced things are the way they are, those are the places to start. Be open to something that you haven't even considered. And then it's deeper than that. Go find the people who will also see something else possible and who are willing to tell you that. And it's not always comfortable. And these are the people that will invest in your life in a way that will make a huge difference, but you're not always going to want to hear what they have to say initially. But if you surround yourself people who challenge you like that, your life can look different than you ever thought it could look better than you ever thought it could look. So, but it starts with the openness, the willingness to be wrong, the willingness to be blind.
And ask for help.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. This
Thanks
was
for
a huge
having me.
honor.
It's so fun.
Guys, you got to go check him out. I'll post all your links in the description
Great.
so that people can go find you. But we'll see you next time on the Marianne Hickman Show. Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And of course, make sure you text me just directly with whatever questions you have about building your brand. You want to build your signature keynote presentation. Maybe you're at the stage where you need to get your ebook out and you need to help writing that. Let's do it all. Whatever you have questions with, wherever you're stuck, just text me 801-509-5495. Let's get this underway and make you some money with your message.